Hey there, and welcome to the daily podcast where wisdom smacks us with kisses or love taps. I'm MichelleSpiva, a wisdom strengthening coach, your host, and practical priestess of wisdom. Mwah. Join us daily to gain wisdom and mental strength as we tackle innovative thinking, address emotional and behavioral life traps, and yes, provide you with some practical how to's to wrap it all up. So settle in or crank up the speed 2x, whatever gets your mental processes firing as we dive in. Stay tuned. Yay! What have you been doing all day? I bet you've been daydreaming, haven't you? Well, exactly. Girl, you gotta get your head in the game and don't get lost in your dreams. Hey, this is Michelle Spiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, and I want to welcome you to today's podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. So you know what to do. You're going to come on with me and join me as we get into talking about don't get lost in your dreams. I'll see you on the flip. All right. Thank you for joining me on the flip. Today, we're going to be just having a little conversation about dreams and what they need to do for us and what we need to do for them, and hopefully give you a few little wisdom smacks along the way. So, you guys, rock with me today. Going to take you a few little places that, might not be where you thought we were going to go, but you know how we do here. We always are going to make sure that it's real practical by the time we end. So let's get into it. So when we talk about not getting lost in your dreams, it can many different ways we could go with this. And so I do want to address the obvious, and that is living a life of Walter Mitty where you do a spiritual bypass and you live all in your head, you live all in worlds that you never plan for them to manifest into the realm you're in. Those are the daydreamers. Those are the people who are, like I said, spiritually bypassing reality and not willing to take pieces of that world that they live in to incorporate them into this world. We would actually put that more so in the realm of fantasy. Yeah. And because it would be in the realm of fantasy, it has a strict line of demarcation where the two shall not ever cross over. And so there's that one. But no, what I'm talking about more so with regards to getting lost in your dreams is where you have dreams that you do want to bring out into the open and you want to make sure that they become fulfilled, but you forget to do some of the necessary things in the now, in the reality that prevents you from making that successful jump over. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers. I do not, because I have been uh, guilty. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm trying to search for the right word. I've been guilty of doing this. I've been guilty of getting lost in the dream in ways that came back to bite me. Like for instance, here's some really practical stuff. I've been lost in a dream where I used to rob from my future self all the time. And when I say rob from my future self, I would go and extend myself credit wise or be overly optimistic that it's funny that I would be like, okay, well, I'm going to commit to this today, knowing good and darn well that me today was not able to fulfill what I had promised for me next year. And I didn't even have a game plan to get me of next year where me of next year needed to be to fulfill the check or the obligation that me now had made. And I was like, why does this always happen to me? Why? And, we continue to learn and grow. And y'all, we just talking here. Today is one of those just good old fashioned motherwit days. I'm just, trying to talk with you as if I'm having a conversation with my friends or with family on things that really need to be discussed. Because when you look at the idea of dreams, they are here for a purpose. Oh, yes, they are. Dreams and imagination are the ingredients for manifesting what you want in your future. But you cannot become untethered where you dissociate who you are in this reality with where you are willing to go in your dreams, because you will miss the mark. You will stay stagnant in the real world, and you will become coddled in this fantasy world. So now that you've let me set this up, let's talk about it's going to be really a lot of theoretical kind of stuff, so bear with me, and then we'll get back to more foundational concrete stuff in a minute. But I want to say this. As a person who works with people and getting them to different states of consciousness and helping them to go and do a lot of real work, I'm talking about architectural work in these different realms, it becomes where I'm privy to where different things tend to want to live in someone's consciousness. And what I will say is this: when you are thinking about dream worlds, and I use that with an S because we have many different dreams concurrently. But when you're talking about dream worlds and fantasy worlds and all of that, they live in different realms of existence. And have you ever noticed how easy it is to create something when you're in your fantasy, when you're in your dream? If you want a tree just appears. If you want to be in love with your favorite crush, whether it be celebrity or otherwise, they just appear. And everything in that world is motored or powered by you and your, as we said before, your imagination and your mind. And so that means that you become the centrifugal force in the middle by which everything spins around and finds their gravitational pull. In essence, you become the sun in that galaxy of your world. And because you're that powerful in your world, it makes it where your word is sovereign. Now, and this is the funny, not funny haha, but funny like dang kind of part of this. And that is that even in our dream worlds, we're so powerful that we can go in our dream worlds and build ourselves up or tear ourselves down. That's how powerful we are. We are unrestrained in our abilities. And it was a little while ago that I can't remember exactly what the training was, and for the sake of this talk, it doesn't really matter. But just understand that I was learning how we take things that live in these realms where we are the sovereign, and by thought, by imagination, and by whim, we're able to create what it takes to move things that are in that world into the realm where we are here. Now, like I said, we're going to get a little out there, but just bear with me. If you'll bear with me. If you ever go and you start to just do a Google search of the different dimensions. Yeah, and this is dimensions, not generations. So that you'll understand what we're talking about. So if you just go and you look at the different dimensions of existence that theoretical physicists have talked about and people have theorized, and now we're starting to get even more concrete with them. um, you'll notice that a lot of the quote unquote dimensions that we live in and experience make total sense when you put this template on top of them. Okay, so let's just go here. Um, so when you're talking about like the first dimension, that's going to be a dot. Like, just a little circle, just one little dot. And then when you talk about the second dimension, that's another dot where you can, yeah, connect so that you start to get a line. But then when you talk about the third dimension, get it? 3D? That's where you start to get the sphere and you start to get the 360. Now, we should note that in the 3D, That's where you start to get a sense of uh, different facets, different possibilities, meaning that in that third dimension is where we start to actually get a sense that, yeah, there are probably more dimensions. And because at this particular time, we all can agree we live in a 3D world. Most people are like, yeah, I can get with that. Okay. So now that we've gotten, those established, and y'all stick with me, I promise you, it's not going to be crazy. I promise. All right. So, uh, now that we are in this third dimension, when we sleep, when we daydream, when we start to move in these realms, we start to get into the realm of time and space. And so, well, space would be the third dimension, time being the fourth dimension, where you get a chance to start warping time, stepping out of time. That's where you're starting to hear people talk about, well, time is a construct that we've all, agreed to uh, be able to, understand and all of that. And then if you've ever listened to any of your parents' songs from the 70s and they talk about fifth dimension and they talk about all of these different realms, what you'll notice is, and you guys, let me go back and correct myself because I'm doing this off the top of my head. So I said that the first dimension is a dot and the second dimension was a line, but I do want to say that it's not just a dot and a line. The first dimension is a dot and it can be a line because if you just put dots consecutively, then that's how you get a line. The second dimension is going to be where now you get another layer where you start to get height. And then the third dimension is where you can get depth or you can get a sphere. Okay. So the fourth dimension, as I was just saying, is where you start to deal with time, meaning you can step out of it. And if you can step out of time, that means that you can manipulate time. And that's where these dreams start to come in because in your dreams, remember I said you can just, if you want a tree, it just appears. So in our reality, it takes a tree at least 10 years to get to a point where it can start to really do some stuff. But in your dream world, it can happen immediately, which means that it suggests that when we dream, we're dreaming in the fourth dimension or better. So then we move into the fifth dimension. And the fifth dimension is where you can start to not only have the length of the first dimension, the height of the second dimension, the depth of the third dimension, and then the time, breaking time in the fourth dimension. In the fifth dimension, this is where you start to be able to see different timelines, parallel lives, and it is hypothesized deja vu because you're like, wait a minute, didn't I experience this before? And it could possibly be that, they're theorizing that you could have parallel lives happening in different dimensions. And that's when we start to get to the fifth. Now, some people, and let me go back to this fourth, and I'm sorry, I'm not sorry, but I apologize for jumping back and forth because we only have a little time, and I don't want to take up a lot of time talking about this because I have to get us back to practicality, usefulness of how can we, not get lost in these dreams and how can we make them work for us. Okay. So if you just bear with me just a little bit more, because I'm not going to go through many more of the dimensions because we don't really need to focus on those per se. You can just do a Google search and look at those. And they do have different types of explanations. So you'll have some that are a little more, and I don't want to say woo woo, it's just that they're more spiritually based. And then you have some that are more theoretically science based, and the ones that I'm talking about right now are going to be more so on that side of what the quantum physicists and theorists, have theorized. That goes out because if I were talking to you more on the spiritual aspect, I would be saying like the fourth dimension where we were talking about time. That would be the astral plane if you were looking at that. The first dimension would be the realm of quantum physics. The second dimension would be where you start to have biology, meaning life. Because if two two get together and they commingle, they bring life. And then the third dimension where we all agree we really do exist is going to be where we start to experience a cognitive reality. So, just going on and on. And then to do it justice, because I've talked about the fifth dimension from the quantum physics side and the scientific side, on the spiritual side, the fifth dimension is going to be more so of the plane of light, or what we would call the heavens. So that dimension that is quote unquote above us. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go too much further out, because in the fourth and fifth dimensions is where you start to see or experience when you go to sleep, if you will, you start to experience. The invitation of these dreams, whether you are wakeful, or sleeping, that's when you start to get into that. Because if you go past that with the sixth dimension, the seventh dimension, and on and on and on, you'll start to realize that you're moving more towards stepping out of the position of being a human to the position of being a director of creativity, and even creating multiple worlds that just continue to exponentially multiply, kind of like getting into Einstein's grand theory of everything with an ever expanding universe kind of thing. Okay. All right. So I hope y'all still with me with this, because I was like, I do not want to go too far into that, but I did want to set it up that your dream world, and the reason why it is so different and you're so able to do more in it, is because you are in a higher dimension. Now, the next thing I want to say about dimensions is you can also presuppose frequencies on them. Nikolai Tesla, genius, out of it's just, oh my gosh, there's so much that can be said about this man's work, his brain, and all of these types of things, and what he was tapped into. He was famous for saying that if you would understand anything about the universe, understand that it is ruled by these three components, and that is energy, frequency, and vibration. And so, and no one has been able to disprove that yet. And so when we talk about these different dimensions, we talk about these different frequencies, and it's really easy to understand, what a frequency is. Frequency is going to be that wavelength that where you get radio waves, microwaves, gamma rays, x-rays. And so this is not any la 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 la, this is real stuff. And so dimensions live in these different frequencies. And so, of course, fourth dimension is going to be higher than the third, fifth is higher than the fourth, and so on and so on. And think of it as radio waves. If you're trying to tune into a radio station and the radio is not able to send you to that frequency, you will get static, and sometimes you will get glimpses or little pieces of what's happening on that frequency. Now, that does not mean that there isn't stuff going on in that frequency. It just simply means that you are not able to oscillate at that particular frequency or wavelength to be able to understand what's going on. And so, what ends up happening, and this is in my humble opinion, when we get into our dream worlds, we get to the point where we are able to get on these frequencies in certain states, but we are not necessarily cognizant of the fact that we need to work on being able to get into these frequencies in different states. And when I say state, I'm talking about a state of awareness, of consciousness. So you guys know I always talk about ways to expand your self-awareness, ways to start to see your shadow side, ways to start to become more aware of the invisible around you, when it pertains to you. And that is because this is an expansion of your ability to operate to the fullness as much as possible on your different layers or states. Okay. And so think of the person who, and I don't, I'll just say this. One of the people that I admire, because I can see he dreams in living color. He dreams while he is in beta, and that is Richard Branson. Every time I look at him, I see that little twinkle. I see that whimsy, that bit of whimsy in him. And just even the way he has named his companies Virgin. And the story behind the name Virgin simply means that he starts companies that he doesn't know anything about. He comes to them as a virgin. And that is why he has this brand called Virgin, and he's willing to go into those because he has found a way to tap into the frequencies of his dreams and bring them into his different states of being where they are not degraded. Okay. And so, for being lost in your dreams, it means that you only allow yourself to operate and enjoy your dreams in one frequency, in a frequency that you might even not realize it, but you might be treating it as something sacred that only should happen in deep meditation or in deep realm sleep, which would be theta. But when you come back to your regular, no, 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 we don't have that wide spectrum of colors. We don't have that. We just live in the drudgery of what reality gives us. And I wanted to just make sure that I impressed on you that you don't have to deal with that. When you are in your dreams, when you are using your imagination, it might be, it's not going to be might. Let me just stop that. I'm just going to tell you straight up. It's hard. When you first start wanting to pull what is in the fourth and the fifth dimensions into the third, it's hard. And you know why it's hard? Because if you are wanting to manifest something in this reality, it takes you a long time because remember, in the third dimension, you're still relegated by time because time is above you. And so I want to now, like I said, I'm like, I don't know if I wanted to say this, but it's in my notes. So I'm going to go on and say it. So, what I am asking you to consider to get unlost in your dreams and to bring them into your reality is that instead of trying to bring them to your current reality that you know, instead go above the fourth dimension to the fifth, where there are many worlds. Remember, we talked about the deja vus, we talked about the parallel lives, and do something that is called quantum jumping. And quantum jumping is not that hard. It is literally asking yourself, who do I need to be to have what is in that dream? And believing that you will be that person and that when you get the impetus to start making different moves and doing different things and learning different skills and taking different actions, you will be consciously, unconsciously manifesting your dreams. Now, bear with me as I go and try to paint this with words of what I'm saying because it's not hard, but it is a different way of looking at life. And when I started seeing that, that is when I got rid of the fear of um how will I ever, how will I take care of myself on my own? And 13 years in of working on my own, I'm just grateful because it would have been way harder for me if I hadn't learned that I don't need to get lost in the daydreams of my dreams. I can start to operate in ways that make my dreams reality. Okay, so you ready? And thank you for staying with me this long. Let's get to this good part because this is actually going to be real practical. All right. So, you know how everybody is always encouraging you to meditate and to be able to still your mind and all of this. It is more so that when you're able to do that, you're able to get yourself entrained. entrained, meaning that it's kind of like when you have all these concentric circles moving in different directions and at different speeds. When you start to meditate, they all start to quote unquote lock into place where they're all aligned. And what ends up happening is if you have ever had meditation where you got to the point where you got past the stillness, you got past the racing thoughts, it almost is if you get like tunnel straight visions of new things that can happen for you, and you start to get new ideas, new insights and wisdoms on how to do stuff, what to do. That is part of getting to this fifth dimension. Okay. So we live on the third, right? And then the fourth is going to be time. And the fifth is going to be multiple planes of existence. Like I said, that's where you're going to see your deja vu. That's where you're going to get different timelines. It's kind of like a decision tree for every decision you make or choice you make. Another one of your timelines splits off. It's kind of like if you combined Inception and a lot of different science fictiony, matrixy kind of things together. That's what would be. And so you don't have to believe it, but just try it. And so what ends up happening is when you start delving into your dreams that, usually start happening on the fourth dimension, and you can clearly see that they are not happening for you in your third, instead of, like I said, instead of trying to change your current third dimension, or not change, instead of trying to bring those dreams down into your third dimension, where they are constrained by time and they will take a long time, you need to start quantum jumping. Now, if you don't believe that this is something that people are doing, just go and Google S jumping. And we've talked a little bit about that in previous podcasts as well, where businesses have learned how to control a lot of the volatility in their business cycles by using these S curves to jump. You guessed it, realities. So that when they get the first signs of something working for a strategy that they wanted, they immediately jump to a new thing, and it's kind of like they start to ride this wave to get them to where they want to be, because they're not just trying to hold on to one business reality until it dies. They don't want to just ride that one business cycle until death. They're always getting to the peak of the wave and then jumping to the next one to ride its peak as they go up and up and up. And it's the same thing that we're talking about here. So, practically, the best way I'm going to tell you to start doing this is to start by just daring to keep a journal of things that you think of when you're daydreaming, things that you dream of at night. Keep a journal, and it doesn't have to be where you write out longhand. You can do keywords or little statements and phrases or pictures of to jog your memory. And you're going to take those and just start by, if you don't say I can't, like some people are like, I cannot, I just can't uh meditate. Do it by journaling. And this is going to be the big thing. It's simple, but it's not easy. And that is, do not ask why or how. Ask who, meaning, who do I need to be to get what this is? And you ask that knowing that if you received it in some type of dream and you want it, that in some reality it exists. Starting at the fifth dimension, it exists. And what ends up happening is when you start daring to ask yourself, who do I need to be to have this? Heaven and earth starts to, and I always say heaven and earth, but it's way more than that, starts to work in your favor to start positioning you to be in that new reality that then, you guessed it, becomes your new 3D, because it becomes your real reality and awareness. Have you ever heard people saying, if someone would have told me last year that I would be here, this is like a totally different world? They have quantum leaped. They have jumped to the place that they need to be. And they have been able to do it by not getting just lost in their dreams, only thinking that they can experience them in this fourth dimension where time has you can bend time to your will. No, they go above that dimension to the fifth, where all these different worlds exist of you. And they are able, by asking that question, who do I need to be, starts to narrow down. Which reality am I in? that gets me what it is that my dreams hipped me to. And by concentrating on that who, then you can start figuring out how. And I will say this as well, that one of the things that you'll notice if when you start doing this is that you will start to meet the necessary people that are going to help you with the how, and you'll start teachers will start showing up, resources will start showing up, and new paths and opportunities that did not exist before start to exist. Now, before I let you go, I need to remind you that there are some necessary ingredients that you have to use. If you don't use them, then you will always stay locked in that fourth dimensional dream that never becomes reality. And that is, you have to employ some imagination, you have to employ some faith, and you have to employ some definite action. And when I say definite action, meaning that you got to put your body and your actions and your mind where your desire is. You can't just say, oh, I had this dream that I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, or I was doing X, Y, and Z, and you just have a whole bunch of imagination. You just got a whole bunch of faith. But even the Bible says faith without works is dead. So you have to be willing to make moves. And these moves are going to challenge you to do stuff and get into realms that you've never gotten into before. But if you do it, guess what? Your dreams will become your new reality. So guess what, y'all? My time is up. I thank you for yours. This has been MichelleSpiva, your practical priestess of wisdom, with another podcast of Wisdom Smack. Mwah. So don't forget to check the show notes and like, share, comment. And guess what? I'll see you tomorrow. And that's going to do it for today's podcast of Wisdom Smack with MichelleSpiva. If you like this podcast, please help us get the word out. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share. And if you really like it, please help us continue to get the word out by considering using this show's link for Amazon. So when you want to go to Amazon and you do all of your general shopping, please use MichelleSpiva.com/AMZ. It's simple as that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and this show might receive a little bit of commission that will go towards helping to further get these episodes out to you and to others. So thank you so much for listening. This has been MichelleSpiva with Wisdom Smack. Bye.